Theology Unplugged.
We're doing so. I'm backing up here because this session, what is involved in this session, is from the video standpoint, like all 60 sessions of the theology program. Most people talk about this session. This is the one that changed them. I think I can't reproduce the magic of being in a classroom and being able to do it the way we do it whenever I'm teaching this live. And so I was trying other options, and I am going to keep on trying other options. But here's the deal. The benefit of me doing that this way is that I can back up, I can relax, I can test things out. This is, I think I'm doing this too much. Like, all right, we get through 365 sessions, and I do them each right. They're each perfect, just kind of like the theology program. This is the test version. So I'm just going to slow down a little bit. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through the stage of truth, and I'm going to teach it just kind of just looking at one screen and talking to you guys. So let's try that out. I think this will work. I think it's going to be okay. I hope you guys enjoy it. But if you guys can remember, the way that I am supported is by going to Patreon. Let's see if I can pull that up. Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Okay, how about that? No, that's not it either. How about that? Nope. Okay, I didn't get that one working. So go to patreon.com/C Michael Patton, or just search for C Michael Patton Patreon. You'll find it. It'll come up. And that's the way I get supported. But also, it's not just the way I get supported, it's the way you get all kinds of good stuff. You get so many free videos, it's ridiculous. I mean, PowerPoints. I don't know how many PowerPoints I give you, but just about everything I've ever produced in the last 25 years is on there. I'll have PowerPoints, all PowerPoint notes. So if you're teachers, it's great for that. If you have any problems with anything, you can get in touch with me on Patreon. Send me a message. We got a good community being built there. I think we're up to, I don't know how many we're up to, 300 or so, but that is great. You guys join Patreon. You can join Patreon for free. Okay, you can just follow, see what goes on if you like. But that's how I get supported. So if any time you feel like, hey, this is really benefiting me, I want to try to make this keep on happening and support this, then do that, because we got bigger plans, bigger vision, all kinds of stuff going on. But okay, let's get started. This is the stage of truth. We're in epistemology. So if you remember, epistemology is the study of how we know things. And that may be self-evident and sound funny, but it's a major category of philosophy and of this class in theology. So epistemology is quite possibly one of the most important subjects that you can learn, simply because it's the foundational subject. It asks, how do you know things? How do you acquire your information? What justifies your beliefs? What warrant? I like warrant. Warrant is a good word for this. What warrant do you have to make a commitment to whatever you're making a commitment to? You have epistemology in every area. But right now, we're talking about the most important area, theology. We're talking about the most important subject, Jesus Christ. What warrant do you have for believing and following Jesus Christ the way you do? This isn't the same thing necessarily, here's another big word, as apologetics. Apologetics just means defending the faith. This is the background to apologetics. And I want you to look at this. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through a full history of epistemology in the Western world to understand how we got to the point we got to. And I think the key for you to recognize here is that we're in a different world. We're in a completely different world. If you are 35 and above, you know that. The world is completely changed. It is different than it used to be. You went through the transition. I went through the transition. I'm 51. I went through this transition. I lived in the modern world. I lived in a transition called the postmodern world, and I don't know where we're going. We're going to talk about that a lot coming up. But really, it is a change in how people know. Okay, that's really it. I mean, what is postmodernism? Postmodernism is a letting go of the ropes you held onto so tightly before about how we knew things, whether it be science and logic and authority, people telling us, where do we get our information from? Right now, we don't really have any sources. That's the key, but we'll get to that, okay? Why can people today say this? This is the key we start with. Why can people today say your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth? That's the question we have to deal with, because that doesn't make any sense to someone like me to say my truth. Are you talking about opinions like what's your favorite color? What's the is Coke better than Dr. Pepper? Is that what you're talking about? If you're talking about that, that's fine. But if you're talking about my truth about God compared to your truth about God, and you're saying I can have a belief in God, say that God exists and he loves you, and you can have a belief in God that says, say, God doesn't exist and I don't like him even if he does. That is completely different epistemology. We can't have the same thing. They both can't be true. A tree cannot fall in the wilderness and make no sound and make a sound at the same time. This is called the law of non-contradiction. A cannot equal A and non-A at the same time in the same relationship. Let me repeat that. A cannot equal A and non-A at the in the same relationship. In other words, God cannot be existing and not existing at the same time and in the same different relationship. If you're defining God differently than me, sure, let's define our terms. Different time, maybe. I mean, if you're defining God as eternal, of course, that wouldn't work. But at the same time, in the same relationship, simply defines our terms. So that is the law of non-contradiction. It's the most simple, basic law of logic. It's so simple, you laugh at it. But at the same time, people today are not following the law of non-contradiction the way they used to. For people today, A can equal non-A and A at the same time in the same relationship. How's that? How's that possible? Well, let's get to that. I want to show you how we got to where we are at, to where you can say your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth with a straight face. That's the key. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move over to this stage of truth. This is what I call the stage of truth. This is think of it, the back of you see the back of the stage right there, and of course all the way down is the front of the stage. Think of this as kind of a three-dimensional stage, because I actually do use this stage, or I used to have a stage like this whenever we filmed this the first time. That's why it's shaped the way it is. That's why it looks the way it does. We use this stage, and I normally get three people up there to represent each one of these categories: tradition, reason, and the Bible. I will have somebody stand up there and hold the Bible in their hand. I'll have somebody stand up there and hold a book of logic in their hand. And then I'll have somebody get up there and hold a book of tradition, say a catechism, in their hand, so that you can represent them. And then I move them around the stage to show what is the most important. And that's what I'm going to try to do here. Whenever we go through each one of these, I'm going to try to take these and I'm going to move it around just like this. Okay. So let's start. Let's go back, and I'm dealing with Western epistemology. So we're starting around the 4th century, but I can back up a little bit. Okay. How did we know things during this time? How did we know things go all the way back to the 4th century whenever we can? I mean, Western epistemology goes back further, but we're just going back to the point when Christianity kind of really began to spread around the world, began to become a more integral part of the nation state and everything else. So you go back around the 4th century, how did people know things? If I went back and I talked to, say, a guy named Chrysostom. Chrysostom is a church pastor and a theologian. And this guy, I might say, how do you know what you believe is true? How do you know things in your day and age? And he would say, well, we use a couple of things here. Let's push this one back. I'm not saying he doesn't use reason, okay? I'm just saying reason is not on the front of the stage of truth, the way that the Bible and tradition is. So you've got the Bible and tradition as the most important part of the stage of truth. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the Christians would refer to the Bible in order to justify their beliefs about things. Whenever there was a controversy about God and about, some type of doctrine, they would go to the Bible and they would try to show you from the Bible. The problem is what? What is the problem with this? Well, most people did not have a Bible at this time. The Bible had not spread. It was expensive. All of the books had not gotten everywhere. It was just something to where you were less inclined, if you were the average layperson, to have a Bible. You might be able to go to Chrysostom and get a full Bible because he had one. He would have had one. He's a pastor. Okay, he's a bishop. No, he's not a bishop, but he's high up. He's a great theologian, and so he would have these things. But why would you? What is tradition? What is tradition in this context? Well, tradition is simply the tradition or the deposit of faith that Christ gave to the apostles. Christ taught the apostles, then the apostles taught everybody else. They started teaching people, right? And then everybody else started teaching everybody else, and everybody else started teaching everybody else. This came through both writing and word of mouth. Okay, if you didn't have the Bible, you did have tradition that was handed down to you. So if there was some type of controversy in the early church, what people would do is they'd first go to the Bible, and they would say, well, the Bible is my primary source. And then they would ask, but how do you know how to interpret the Bible? How do you know your interpretation's right? Let me give you an example, okay? In the 4th century, you have a guy named Arius. Arius comes on the scene, and this guy, he's a bishop. And Arius says he was reading John 3:16, and as he was reading it, he noticed that it said that Christ was the only begotten God, or the only begotten Son of God, excuse me. So, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, right? We all know that one, at least. It's at every football game. So, begotten. Arius was looking at this word named begotten, and he said, well, I was begotten too. Everybody was begotten. And everybody watching this, you were begotten at some point by your parents. That just means you were brought into this world. You were birthed. And so Arius was looking at this, and he was saying, well, if I was begotten, where was I before I was begotten? I didn't exist, right? And so Arius was looking at this, and he said, I think that Jesus didn't exist before God beget him. And this was new. This was something that shook up Christianity, because he was teaching his church down there in Africa, big church. And, there was lots of fights going on because another guy was teaching at a church down there, the same area, and his name was Athanasius. And he was a bishop as well. And this bishop he said, listen, Arius, you guys, you are so wrong in your interpretation of John 3:16. Begottenness does not mean madeness. It doesn't have to do with the ontology of Christ coming into existence, the essence of Christ coming into existence. It's about the relationship of the essence. So there was a fight that went on, okay? Now, what's going on here? They're all fighting over this right here. They're all looking at the Bible, and they have it way up in the front of the stage of truth, and they're saying, how do we know? How do we know? Remember, that's the question. How do you know? How do you know how to interpret the Bible? How do you know your interpretation's right? How do you know that Jesus is the uncreated God that is the second person of the Trinity, who shares, not is just part of, but shares, keyword, in the divine essence, because there's only one God. They have to share this essence. I know it's confusing, but Arius was confused, and he said, I got a solution. I think Jesus was made. I think he was created. Now, again, fight broke out. Everybody's wondering, what in the world do we do with this passage of Scripture? And then in comes old tradition, right? Tradition moves forward. And Arius says, listen, I was taught by my teacher, who was taught by his teacher, who was taught by his teacher, who was taught all the way back to the Apostle Paul. And the Apostle Paul said Jesus was an uncreated God. Or I was taught by, well, let's go back to this guy named Ignatius. He was very close to the Apostle John, who wrote this. So Ignatius taught somebody, John taught Ignatius. Ignatius taught maybe 2 or 3 generations until Arius. And he finds his tradition. He says, everybody's always taught that. So they begin to ask, what is everybody always taught? You remember, you notice this. This is tradition. What is everybody always taught about this particular passage? They have a big council in Nicaea in 325. And at this council, they write the Nicene Creed. And they say, they get together, 320 bishops. Now, I know I already said this last time and talked about this. Forgive me for repeating it, but I'm just going through the entire thing in one session, and then we'll back up and talk about it a while. But 322 bishops come together in Nicaea. Emperor Constantine brings it in because he wants to unite the empire under Christianity, and he doesn't want them fighting in his newly united empire. So he says, you guys get together, I'll pay for it. It's on my dime, hotels, extravagant, whatever you want. Just get down there and figure this out. So you got all these guys coming in. Remember, they come in from persecution. This was 20 years ago. It was the Diocletian persecutions where they were cutting out their eyes and cutting off their legs. I mean, hanging them on crosses. So these guys were guys who made it through. These guys were guys who did not give up and recant the faith. And so they come in, picture this, into this council, and they are limping. They have patches over their eye. They're not ready to be influenced. They are not ones who you're going to pull the wool over their eyes. They will die for their faith. They've already demonstrated this. And so whenever they make this decision, they are not giving in to any pressures. That's a key, just as a side note. So 320 to 1 or 320 to 2, it depends on who you're reading, but every bishop came in and said, no, tradition, this right here, has always taught that Jesus is uncreated God. That is not, to say he is creation, to say he is a creation is not Christian. That's what they said. It is not Christian. Different worldview, different everything. That is not the Bible. We got too many other places in the Bible. We got it. Arius, you think you solved the Trinity, but the Trinity has to stay a mystery. So they wrote the Nicene Creed. Now, what does this do at this point? Once they write the Nicene Creed, you have the tradition moving forward on the stage of truth. And the Bible, it's not that the Bible necessarily moves back, although I'm moving it back. I just want you to understand how prominent tradition became. Let's put it like this. This is probably better. Instead of moving the Bible way back, I'm going to move the Bible right here, and then I'm going to move tradition right here. And it's kind of moving in a position of guardianship. It's going to guard the Bible. And that's what happens. We'll write a creed that tells you how to interpret the Bible from tradition. That creed is going to become authoritative. And the Nicene Creed is authoritative in a very real sense. I mean, it's very well respected. Catholics and Eastern Orthodox would say the Nicene Creed has the same authority as the Bible. Now, I would not. I would say it is right, it is true, and that what they came to was right. How they came to it was right. But we do not have to bless it with the idea that it was inspired in order for us to be confident in it. But this is what happened, okay? And those of you who are watching this and you're saying, "Yep, there we go. Here's the Catholic Church. Here's what they did. Here's what those guys did." Well, I would not have done the same. You would have done the exact same. We all would have done the exact same here because it worked. It was a good method. We didn't know it was going to go bad. Nobody knew that. It's kind of like somebody getting on drugs. They don't know they're going to be addicted later on. They're not getting on it to be addicted and say, "Hey, I want to be addicted." People are not making these creeds at this time with some evil plan saying, oh, I cannot wait. We are going to take over the church. It's going to become an evil, corrupt institution. Everybody is doing the best they can. This is our heritage. This is our family, our spiritual family. This is us. This is just a mistake we made in the past. It's not them. It's us. Start identifying yourself even with the mistakes of the past so you can learn from them and that we can see how we messed up as the body of Christ, as the church, not as a different church, but as one holy Catholic apostolic church. We are Catholic. Everybody's Catholic. Catholic just simply means universal. So we're talking about the entirety of the Catholic Church. So what happened? Okay, let's go back to this. So another controversy comes up, and basically we got another one that says, I think Jesus is 50% man and 50% God. And everybody starts having a conflict, saying, no, I don't think so. I think he's 90% man or 90% God, 10% man, something like that. They're just kind of trying to figure out who Christ is. How is he God and man? What part of him is man? What part of him is God? Okay, so we do the same thing. Hey, listen, last time we did a creed in 325 at Nicaea. Why don't we try that again? Here we are, 454, the Chalcedonian Creed. And so here we have it. They all get back together and they say, what does everybody say? What has the church always taught? The same question they asked about Nicaea, about Christ's nature, his begottenness. What is it that everybody has always taught about Christ? Is he 50% man, 50% God? What is it? And everybody gets together and says, no. And, unity is there. And they say 100% man, 100% God. Notice how they're leaving the tensions. And I like that. That's very good. There is some major tensions in the Christian faith, and especially on these two issues, the nature of Christ and the nature of the Trinity. But everybody came together and said, he's 100% man, 100% God. That's the Chalcedonian Creed. So what do? We do this. We say, okay, look, let's make sure the Bible is completely protected by tradition. Okay? So that's what happened. That's how the institution of the Catholic Church began. Now, whenever I say the institution of the Catholic Church, I'm talking about the institutionalized Catholic Church that it became, not us as all universal Catholics. Here's the deal. It worked. It was good. It really was. I have no problem with the Creed of Nicaea. I have no problem with the Chalcedonian Creed. I ascribe to them both. With little footnotes on a couple of them. But either way, they're right. They are true. They help protect the interpretation of the Bible. They help protect Christianity. As a matter of fact, they define Christianity because they say this is what every Christian has always believed. It has to be the power of God. Why would God give us a faith, give us a Bible, and then just let everybody mess up from now on? He's the sovereign God of the universe. The gates of hell cannot prevail against the church. Therefore, God is going to be seen in history, and I think this is one of the ways he's seen. However, what happens is more and more as we go through history, people quit even looking at the Bible and they just look at tradition. And we're going to corrupt anything. We are, humanity. This is the way we do things. We corrupt things. We mess up. We're going to take something good like the Bible, something good like tradition, and we're going to use it to our own advantage, slightly or majorly, however this happens. You see it in the church. Slowly but surely, more and more tradition begins to define Christianity. And here's the key. Tradition became overdefined. Tradition began, the little book of tradition that was there at Nicaea, this little thing right here at Nicaea in 325, this little creed we wrote got thicker and thicker and thicker. Okay, not that particular creed, but what I'm saying is tradition. Let's put it this way. I'll do it this way. Tradition just got, let me see if I can do this. I don't know if I can. Probably going to mess everything up. Here we go. Tradition just got not smaller, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, okay? Until it was just overshadowing everything. You could not see the Bible. You could not see anything else, any other source. How do you know things? How do you know what you know about your faith? Well, pastor tells me everything. Well, I just leave it up to the church. This is what the church says. Have you ever read the Bible? No, I've never read the Bible. See, it gets to the point where later on, even priests, even bishops, nobody was reading the Bible. Nobody knew the Bible. It got worse and worse and worse. I mean, I'm exaggerating to some degree, but the institutionalized church was represented this way. So corruption came on. Power-hungry people came around. Everything got worse and worse and worse. So what happened? Well, let's go back to the Muslim invasion begins to happen. And whenever you have this happening in the 7th century all the way through to the 15th century, you have Muslims pushing further and further west, trying to get west. They got pretty far, but the Crusades came along, and, of course, the tradition of the Pope, he said, I'll give eternal life, grant eternal life through the powers invested in me to anybody who goes on a crusade. Yeah, see, tradition got bad. Book of tradition got so thick, even the Pope was given eternal life to whoever went on a crusade. It just got bad. But it was the Muslim invasion. They were pushing forward, and in 1454, you had them run through Constantinople, which was the new capital of the Roman Empire. Had all kinds of manuscripts, just a library so big of great stuff, classic Greek understanding, rationality, and, Aristotle, Plato, and then all the Bible manuscripts and the old Greek manuscripts. All of a sudden, whenever in 1454, the Muslims took over Constantinople, all the Christians got up and ran and went to Rome, went to the west, further west, and brought all their knowledge with them. At the same time, in 1420, here's the key. The most important thing is the invention of the printing press. The invention of the printing press changed the world as much as the internet has changed the world. You have now everybody having access to their own Bible, their own books, whatever it may be. You have information being spread. Now there's a reason for you, which there wasn't before, there's a reason for you to learn how to read. Beforehand, you didn't need to. You wouldn't even be able to get a book. But now, with the printing press, you might be able to afford one. Beforehand, you had to have a whole herd of sheep to make one book. Now, it's just paper. Very easy. So, everybody starts to learn. Well, once everybody starts to learn, of course, epistemology is going to change. You just have major things happening at this point. Now, one of the major things you have is this one creeping up here. Reason, rationality. People are thinking on their own. They're thinking for themselves. They're understanding things. We've got science and mathematics. We've got learning that is exploding. You've got natural laws. You're understanding gravity now from the standpoint of not God supernaturally pushing an apple off a tree and making it fall, but from a natural law. God created these natural laws to do. We are going around the sun, not because God has us in his hand and he's taking us around the sun. It's because he created a natural law that pulls us around the sun. Okay, that kind of stuff. Oh, and by the way, we are not the center of the universe. We're learning so many things. And as we learn, here's what's going on in our mind. Gosh, you know what? We had all kinds of bad views before. And here's what we do. We say, who told us these views? Who is telling us all these bad views? And traditions like sinking and getting really scared and starting to retreat. Reasons coming forward because we are learning on our own. Tradition automatically lowers and loses its authority as reason rises. Now, it's not as if the Bible is not rising at the same time. The Bible is in a very real sense because everybody can read it. Everybody's starting to read it on their own. So you've got this situation happening. So reason, though, is something we are very proud of, right? Rene Descartes is called the father of modernism. Rene Descartes basically said, you know what? I'm going to figure out everything, not from tradition, not from knowledge of the outside world, not from experience, but with my own mind. Just using my mind, I'm going to start at ground zero with nothing and build my case for everything. This is his quest for indubitable certainty. And this is the famous cogito ergo sum revelation he had. Everybody know what that means? Do you? I don't mean to just throw out these words, but it's very popular. You probably learned it in school. Cogito ergo sum is I think, therefore I am. Where did he come up with that? Well, he was trying to figure out how he could start at the most basic point rationally, thinking on his own, just using his mind, and figure out everything. Well, the first thing I got to figure out, let's say I'm trying to figure out, is there a God? Just by myself, not listening to tradition, not listening to the Bible, not listening to the experience, nothing, can I reason myself to God? And what he did was said, okay, in the end, how do I know that I am not being deceived, even in my mind right now, that there's not demons planting things in my head? And he says, well, I don't, maybe that is, but so that's not the most basic point. So I don't even have a epistemology for this. How do you know demons aren't doing it? That's what he's thinking. And then he backs up even further and he says, how do I even know I exist? And then he begins saying the same thing. Maybe demons are telling me I exist. Maybe I think I exist because demons are telling me the most basic thing, I exist. Maybe demons are making me think that. Then he said, wait a minute. This can't be, because if I am thinking, then I have to be a thinker. If I'm a thinker, I am an exister, because there's no way to think without being. I think, therefore I am. So that was his most basic point to start at. And he said, I can figure out things. I can figure out things indubitably. Indubitably means I cannot be wrong. That's what his quest was for. Indubitability. I cannot be wrong. It was quite a quest, okay? And while we would maybe say he way over pushed what he was trying for, but it was a noble push, okay? He didn't get quite to where he thought he got to whenever he said, I'm at the most base level, I think, therefore I am, because he's assuming one thing, the law of non-contradiction. How come it can't be I think, therefore I'm not, at the same time as I think, therefore I am? But we all assume that. That's okay. This is what we're learning. So here's the deal. Why all this? Because I want you to see how important reason and rationality became to the human endeavor, and how in the question of how do you know things, people began to refer not to an outside source, but to themselves. And they thought they were pretty smart because they thought, therefore they were, because they were building this up on their own. So here's what happens. You continue to have this change taking place. Reason is coming up. Tradition, the problem with tradition at this point is, as reason learns about astronomy and about mathematics and about all kinds of things, it's looking to tradition, and it's looking to ways that tradition has treated people, like, say, Galileo. Galileo came in and said, we are not the center of the universe, and we go around the sun does not go around us. He was put in jail for that. Well, we got telescopes now, tradition, and you're seeming to become more and more irrelevant because you seem to have betrayed us and taught us wrong for so long. See what's happening? See the change that's going on? It's a break with tradition. Now, at the same time that you have reason coming forward, you have the Bible still holding its place, but at the same time, the Bible, as we move on down through the modernistic period, becomes more and more irrelevant to people because people begin to read it themselves and find all kinds of things they don't like. They say, wait a minute. Okay, here we go. Let's look at the Bible. Bible. Do snakes talk? Yes. Okay, reason says they don't. Here's the Bible telling us snake talk. What a weird book. Let's see here. Tradition's going all the way back, and tradition is getting smaller and smaller as well. Wait a minute. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. I'm gonna make tradition disappear because it's totally irrelevant. People feel too betrayed by tradition, so it's off the stage of truth at this point. Get that. It's important. It's important for understanding why we are where we are. You got to understand, in the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, tradition got pushed off the stage of truth in any substantial way whenever you're looking at it broadly. Epistemology. I'm not saying individually. I'm not saying tradition still doesn't matter. Please don't misread what I'm doing here, because I'm getting ready to kick the Bible off the stage of truth too. So we begin to ask the Bible, hey, snakes talk? Yeah, the snakes talk. Okay. How many days did it take for God to create the earth? Oh, you say 7? Oh, okay, let's move you back a little bit. And how old is the earth? You say 6,000 years, whatever, because we tried to add it up, and it seems like you say that. Well, we know it's millions of years old now. We're getting smarter and smarter, and as time goes on, as we learn more and more, here we have this situation happening where reason gets bigger and bigger, and finally, after a time, the Bible, listen, here's the deal. The Bible's a good book. That's what we would say at this point. People would say, yeah, it's got to go. I mean, even the average person out on the street that isn't necessarily a Christian, because Christianity is kind of losing its influence, and the Bible is too. People are smarter. We've got utopia on the way. We're going to create a world of perfection, right? Utopia. We had that word during this time. We were so excited. As humanity, it was like, man, we are something else on our own. We don't need tradition. We don't need the Bible, anybody to tell us that, because we can look inside and see how great we are. We're something else. That's the idea, okay? Get that in your mind. And so then as this moves on, as tradition gets more, and people are more and more excited about it, what it's going to do, how it's going to change the world, what we are becoming ourselves. Here's the problem. I mean, Darwin comes in and says, we're evolving, right? We're getting better and better. We're the survival of the fittest. We're the fittest, of course. Man is. We're great. We maybe don't even need God anymore. Death of God type stuff. But here's the problem. Okay, something happens. Can you think what happened? Why it is that reason isn't the answer, at least today. Why isn't reason the answer today? Go back 1960s and before, yeah. Reason was it. It was the bomb. We were the bomb. But here we go. You have what comes up. Oh, let me get back to this. What comes up? You have utopia on the rise, right? Oh, not really. Utopia is not on the rise, because you have World War I. World War? World War? I thought we were moving towards utopia. World War II. What in the world is going on? I mean, it's getting worse than ever as far as peace is concerned. You have the Holocaust. I mean, man is so incredibly evil. Things are just going really bad. The 20th century did not serve reason well, and the utopian excitement of the Enlightenment began to crumble fast. We invented the atomic bomb and dropped it. I mean, look at this. We've got this going down, losing more and more influence, because we're realizing, as a species, as a whole, together, unified, we're not that good. We don't do good things. We fail a lot. And then you get further and further throughout the 20th century, and then all the discoveries that we've had in, say, science and medicine begin to change. Things that were good for you before are bad for you now. Somebody's cheating. Somebody's doing it wrong. Somebody's misleading us. We got problems. The food pyramid turns upside down in the 1990s. You can't turn the food pyramid upside down. That's science. That's math. No, it's not. At least we can't comport our reality with what is real out there, and reason is not leading us in the right way. It's not interpreting what math it produces, because we're messing it up. We're bad. People are bad. That's the deal. People are not as good as we thought together. So what do you have? Here's the deal. Here's the stage of truth. Here's the situation right now. Okay, today. So what do you look at this stage of truth, and what do you see? You see nothing. Nothing at all. It's empty. So where do you go for truth? Well, if you don't have any outside sources to go to, if you don't have any authority, everything's betrayed us, at least in our minds. Tradition, reason, the Bible, everything seems to be, we don't even know anymore. We have no idea what's right. So what happens? We have to define it ourselves. You and I are the arbiters of truth. Whenever it comes down to what is true, whenever it comes down to defining reality outside yourself, where do you go? Only to myself. So, it's you be you. That's kind of a good postmodern phrase. You be you, I'll be me. Because there's not any transcendent outside of us way to be. There's nothing defining what we're supposed to be. And you know what? You're the best version of you. You see? I'm the best version of me. And let's just be it. And your truth, whatever you're fighting for, that's good. Whatever I'm fighting for, good. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. Because in the end, the only two things that can define what is true for you and me is experience number one, and emotions. Those are the two powerhouses that find their way onto the stage of truth and today define everything. That's who we are. Those people who do not have any outside sources. We don't know what's true. Now it is this postmodernism, we don't know where it's going to go, and that's what we're going to talk about next time. That was a lot to go through. I had to get through it all at once because I think it's more effective, and maybe we can talk about it more next time, or maybe we'll just talk about where it's going to go next time. Where do we go from here? But I wanted you to get the big picture. I know that there's all kinds of caveats. There are all kinds of buts during this, but this is right. This is how we got to where we are at. Whenever you have the invention of the internet and people looking online and seeing the entire world, their own individual reality that they may have constructed as true, they begin to question against other people's individual reality. If I believe in the Bible and I believe in Jesus Christ, and here's my doctrinal statement, here's everything I believe, but then I look over there, I'm on Facebook, I'm on some of these social medias, and I make friends with people all over the world, and I like those guys. I like those friends all over the world. And you know what? They believe different than me, and I don't want them to be wrong, because what I'm doing is basically saying those guys aren't saved. I'm saved. And then you say, who am I to say that? It's an emotional thing you start to grab. It's an emotional thing you start to find with other people. And this is the world we live in. Okay, guys, Patreon. Don't forget Patreon. Support us there. Soon we're going to get to the point where I got all this stuff down, and we're going to have chat sessions in here and all kinds of stuff. I promise we are going to get there. I'm learning. I've spent lots of time on these different places. I will learn. I will figure it out. But for now, please go to Patreon. That is the way to support. Patreon.com/C Michael Patton. It's in the discussion, or it's in the comments or the description of wherever you're watching this at. And I thank you so much for watching. I don't even know if I came through this whole time. I just hope this recorded, because it's a whole different ball game for me today. Have no idea. How's that go, right? I don't know. And if you're there, I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not there, doesn't matter. What's true for you, true for you. What's true for me, it's true for me. And you know what? I had fun. And I think you were there. So that's all that matters. All right. I'll see you next time.